And I was kind of like living the dream. I was going to work in a law firm and it was so prestigious and I got to dress up every day and I felt really proud of myself and as I should and as should anybody else who accomplishes what they set out to do. But eventually the panic attacks came and I burnt out and there was one time where I actually had to be taken to the hospital from the law firm because I thought I was having a heart attack. And I get to the hospital and they're like, no, you're just having a panic attack. So at that point, it was like, okay, I need to make some changes.
If you have ever looked around at your life and thought, this can't be it, you are in the right place. This is Flying Upstream, the podcast for people who refuse to live on autopilot. I'm your host, Kristyn Medeiros. Each week, I sit down with people who questioned the rules, challenged the expectations, and chose a different path. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. We talk about the moments that broke them open, the decisions that scared them, and the lives they built when they stopped doing what they were told and started listening to themselves. If you are done following the crowd and ready to trust your own way forward, stay with me. Let's fly upstream. Hey, free spirits, welcome back to Flying Upstream. Today's conversation is for the person who looks completely fine on the outside, but feels exhausted, disconnected, or numb on the inside. Jess Vanrose is a trauma-informed guide in nervous system regulation and identity, and the host of the Life After Trauma podcast. Her work centers on helping people move from simply getting through the day to actually feeling present in their own lives. Jess's story is powerful. She grew up believing in the American dream formula, following the path, working hard, and life will turn out okay. But her reality looked very different. She experienced trauma early on, dropped out of high school as a teenager to support herself, and spent time functionally homeless, living in shelters. At 20, she earned her high school equivalency, went to college, became a law clerk, and worked in the legal field for a decade. From the outside, she rebuilt her life, but internally, she was still surviving. Today, we're talking about what survival mode does to your identity, how to tell the difference between resilience and coping, and what it actually means to come back to yourself without forcing healing. Jess, I am thrilled and so grateful that you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. I cannot wait for this conversation.
So excited. Okay, let's get right into it. So, you were raised with very traditional American dream values. So, help us understand, what did you believe life was supposed to look like when you were younger?
Okay, well, first of all, it's the Canadian dream up here for me because
Okay.
I'm in Canada,
The
but
Canadian dream. Got
very much the same though.
it.
So, yeah, if I'm gonna be really honest here, my life was really not at all traditional because of what my childhood was like. But I think what the traditional part was that we were very involved in church. And so we had like that religious and so what that looked like, what the future that I was told I was supposed to have is very much, you have your 9 to 5 job and you kind of do what you're told. And especially growing up in the church, we were always told, you do what you're told. There wasn't really any like breaking out of that mold. It was find the safe thing. What's the job that's going to earn you the most money? What's the safest path for you? And just stick to that. Have kids at a reasonable age, get married. Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
this I'm sure the same thing we've been all been told.
Yes, absolutely. So you did have significant trauma though, and you had to drop out of high school to work full time and support yourself. Walk us through what that season of your life felt like.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was in survival mode very much at that point, even though I didn't have the language for it. I didn't know what it was, but what it felt like was numb. Like
Mm.
I was dissociated for most of that time. And so the best way that I can describe that is that it felt like I wasn't actually living. I was floating above my body and just kind of watching my life happen. Even though like I was obviously still making all those decisions, making those choices, but there's just it was completely disconnected. Like my body was not connected to my brain. That's the best way to describe that. But I remember having this sense inside of me that was like, I am going to get through this and I am meant for so much more. And
Mm.
I think that is why I never ended up in a terrible place because there are so many people who could have had the life that I had and not end up where I am. And so I had this feeling inside me that this belief in myself, or this trust in myself, even back then, that I knew that I could get through and do something with my life.
That's beautiful. I really want to call out that you had this kind of internal knowing. Even in the most difficult, darkest time, you knew deep inside you were meant for more and you knew that you would get through it. And that is so powerful because everybody, I mean, literally every guest I've had, plus everyone I know in real life, has had some kind of difficult time, right? To varying degrees, of course, but it's part of our human experience. That's life. That's just how it is. And so having that almost as like your guiding voice inside that, hey, this is really tough, but I will get through this and I will do great things. I will be happy and I will move forward
Yeah.
is so powerful. And I'm kind of curious, like, how did you know that? Where did that come from? Did someone tell you? Did you read it? Did you just kind of know? Because a lot of people don't have that, and that can create other problems, addictions and such. But you knew that and you were willing to kind of persevere through it to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, so Kristen, I have asked myself this so many times. I have been trying to figure out what exactly it was. And when I look back, I mean, yes, I had a traumatic childhood, but I also had some really good supports. Like my mom was amazing, and I don't have memories of my childhood, but I very strongly believe that she was constantly telling me that I can do anything. And like her parents, my grandparents, my Oma and Opa, they also were such a support. And so I think that it was those few years that I had with just the three of them that really instilled it in me and gave me that
Mm.
strong foundation because otherwise I don't know where it came from. It was just
I love it.
there.
Yeah. I know what I bet you're right because I have heard that our internal voice, our the voice we hear in our head is oftentimes our parents or the people who raised us. And we think it's our own, but it's not really. And sometimes it can be negative, right? Like you're not good enough, you're worthless, but it can also be positive, right? Like what you're saying that I will get through this. I am meant for more. I am a phenomenal person and I'm worth it. And
Yeah.
so that so often is a voice that we have heard so many times, we now think of it as our own. It's the voice in your head. So beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yes. Good job to your mom and your grandparents.
Yes, thank you, Mom.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now we're kind of in a place where you're experiencing homelessness. At 20, you earned your high school equivalency and went on to complete a law clerk program. And that's a huge shift, right? What was driving you during that rebuilding phase?
Yeah, so it was literally the only thing that was going through my mind was like, I will not end up like this. I will not end up like this. And it was like an ongoing mantra, like I have to get out of here. And it was really tied to the small city that I grew up in. Because that's where everything happened. Like all of the trauma happened. And so in my mind, it was kind of all tied to that place. And I don't know if other people have experienced this. I'm sure with like breakups, you know that feeling where you're like out doing groceries or whatever, you're like, "Oh my God, I don't want to run into that person."
Yeah.
It was the same kind of thing. And everybody was in that small town, so it was just like I have to get out of here. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just like that drive to like to go. It was honestly, it was probably the fight or flight. It was probably like I was stuck in flight. It was just like, go.
Yes, yes. Good for you. I mean, I think there is part of that fight or flight instinct that everybody has that does serve us, right? And the problem is that in our modern world with life and oftentimes not knowing how to respond in a healthy way to trauma and various life situations that we get stuck in that mode. But it certainly does serve us. So it was great. Your body was telling you, get out of here. And you did. So you went on to become a law clerk. And from the outside, it looked like success and stability. What was happening for you inside during that time?
Oh yeah, this is where, you know, it feels like this is where the next story starts. So like you mentioned in the beginning, I was working in the legal field for a decade, a little bit over a decade, I think. Um, and it seemed like I had done it. I got out of that little town. I was in a bigger city, which when I moved there, it felt like the big city. And I was kind of like living the dream. I was going to work in a law firm and it was so prestigious and I got to dress up every day and I felt really proud of myself and as I should and as should anybody else who accomplishes what they set out to do. But eventually the panic attacks came and I burnt out and there was one time where I actually had to be taken to the hospital from the law firm because
Mm.
I thought I was having a heart attack. And
Oh gosh.
I get to the hospital and they're like, no, you're just having a panic attack. So at that point, it was like, okay, I need to make some changes. But it's not the changes that you think. Instead, I was like, what coping mechanisms can I come up with here? So I went on medication. I went on an antidepressant, which led to hallucinations. Quickly got off of that. But then I went out and bought an Apple Watch that tracks like your heart rate, right? So I was like, okay, I'll just set an alert on my watch so that if my heart rate goes over a certain amount, then I can step outside and breathe a little bit, and then I can come back in and work. So it was really just finding like those coping mechanisms to get me through that. But then I was let go from my most recent legal job. And everything changed at that point because I was at a crossroads. I could panic and find another job that I knew was too much stress and not good for my body, or I could go the different route, the scary route. So I took some time to really think on that. I didn't want to act out of panic, out of fear. And so I paused. I took some time, which thankfully I had the ability to do that. And then in that time, I received a health diagnosis that was like the next shift. So right before Christmas, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And it was literally my body saying, you can't keep doing this. And not even just my body saying that, but the doctors saying that. The number one trigger for my autoimmune disease is stress. So it's like I can't go back to that high stress job. It's no longer an option, which is scary, but it's also kind of beautiful that it's no longer an option for me to continue to abandon my needs, you know? It's no longer an option for me to just simply adapt to survive, but to find a different path where I can actually live my life.
Yeah, we can get really good at painting red flags green. So we think we see the warning signs, but we ignore our intuition. We push it aside. We say it's fine. I'm working really hard for that promotion, or they pay me really well, or this is a prestigious job. It's fine. And in reality, it's definitely not fine. And oftentimes, the first sign of it is your body, right? It can be disease, even something simple like headaches or stomach ache,
Mhm.
but your body is trying to tell you something, right?
It
And we don't
is.
listen.
Yes, exactly. And I wanna say that sometimes it's not even that we're choosing to not listen, but that we don't even notice it. I feel like a lot of us are so disconnected from our bodies that we don't even notice those signs until it becomes unmissable. Until
Yes.
it's like a flashing neon sign, like, "You
Yeah.
cannot miss me."
Yeah. Absolutely. And I appreciate your comment saying that it was no longer an option for you to go back to that job.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that kind of impacted you and your sense of identity and your sense of self-worth, because that job had been everything to you, right? It's prestigious, you were making good money, got out of the small town, all the things that you wanted. And now all of a sudden, like, nope, that door is shut. And so what happens now?
Oh, yeah. So, I probably spent about a month afterwards where I felt I was so low that I feel like there was a lot of days where I actually just, like, spent the most of the day in bed, like, because I felt like I failed. I felt like a huge failure, and it was constantly, like, asking, like, "Okay, like, who am I now? Am I a terrible worker? Like, do I have just awful work ethic? Am I just" like, all of these questions about myself and my worth and just doubting myself, and it was really hard. It
Yeah.
was really hard. But, you know, we're not our job. We're not our job. We're so much more
Right.
than that.
Right.
And I always knew, like, I started my podcast way back before that, like before that moment of being let go, like probably a year ago. So I knew that there was something else that I was supposed to be doing, but I was too scared. I was too scared
Mm.
to make that change, to let go of that security of the prestigious job that paid me well, you know?
Mhm.
And I just decided to stick with what was familiar.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
nothing that's inherently wrong with that, but sometimes it means that you don't get to live the most beautiful life that you're meant for.
Yeah. And I think many people out there have that fear of letting go.
Yeah.
Fear of letting go of the, as you said, the stability, what is known, right? So it's sort of like the life may not be perfect, but you know it and you're familiar with it,
Mhm.
whether that's being just kind of a job that's fine, or even having abuse in the home kind of thing, whatever it is, that's kind of your baseline. And at least you know it and you can manage it. And there is real fear in letting go of that, even though from an outsider's perspective, it's sort of like, why, right? It's hard to
Yeah.
understand, but obviously many people don't. And what would you say to someone who's like, in that tough situation and maybe looking for a quick fix? But we know sometimes quick fixes don't work, but they're looking for something, and trying to move forward. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so, I would obviously never tell anybody to just jump and leave your job. But, what I would say is that you can start just, like, paying attention to your body. And so to leave survival mode, it's choosing yourself in moment to moment. Like, it's not some big decision, like you snap your fingers and you're just out of it. It's constantly choosing yourself. And so
Mm.
you might notice one moment you didn't choose yourself, but then the next moment that comes along, you have that choice again. So
Mhm.
whether that means like listening to your body, listening to your intuition, maybe if we're talking about at work in a career, maybe you feel too tired to do something. You feel like you're at your capacity and they try to hand you more work. I think we're all familiar with that. It's okay. In this moment, do I say, actually, I don't have the capacity for this right now? Or do I just accept it and push through?
Yeah. I like your comment about constantly choosing yourself too. It's very hard to remember that, but so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's like the number one thing for anybody who's going through this journey, anybody who's struggling with, I mean, not just even career stuff, just anything. It's finding those moment to moments where you can choose yourself and listen to your body and come home, reconnect. Don't just adapt to survive.
Yes, yes. And I'm curious, what does healing look like when it is humane instead of prescriptive or overwhelming?
Yeah. So, what that means to me is that we're paying attention to what we need as an individual. Prescription, prescriptive healing, that is those quick fixes that you always see online, like 5 steps to release anxiety or whatever, like it's those things that you always see posted. And yes, they may help. They probably will help in the moment. It's a great band-aid, but it's when we're saying like humane healing, it's like, what do you need as an individual? Because everybody's healing path is different. Everybody's story is different. So each person is going to need something different to heal. And so it's not about, let me put it this way. When I started my healing journey, I was seeing all of these things that you should be doing. And it felt more like a checklist, and it felt like pressure. And it felt like if I wasn't doing all of these things, then I wasn't healing properly. But some of those things didn't work for me. And I was scared to look at other avenues or look outside of those prescriptive options because it's not what healing was supposed to look like. That's not the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, and that's part of it too, is that we get in our minds there is a way things are supposed to be or supposed to look like, or it's, doing yoga every day, like the person I follow on Instagram, or doing meditation. And I want to do meditation, but it's too hard for me and I can't do it. And then I feel like I failed if I don't do it in the way that I'm supposed to, if I don't do it at all. There's a lot of like pressures in that. And I think even in the healing process and the process of letting go, there's still pressures in that, and that makes it even more layered and complex, especially for somebody who's trying to get past that. It kind of can keep creeping back up.
Exactly, exactly. And I just want to remove that idea that there's like something that you should be doing. Like what you should be doing is whatever feels good to you.
Yes.
What helps you do that? Like that's that's the number one thing is just finding out what is your thing. And it's funny that you mentioned yoga and meditation because that actually is where my healing journey started was
I love
finding
it.
yoga and meditation. And it's come full circle now because I have meditations available. But
Love it.
yeah, but it's like it is finding that one thing for you. And to your point, so many people have said to me, I don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean though? You can't meditate? Like it's all you have to do is sit down and close your eyes. And
Hmm.
but again, that looks different for each person. So maybe it means putting on a guided meditation. Maybe it means sitting there in silence. Maybe it means going for a walk. Like, to me, that's meditation. Anything that you can do that's mindful, where your intention behind it is simply to come in. Just that's what meditation is, right? It's just coming inside, inward. So anything that you can do where you can set an intention, maybe that's cooking or baking for some people, and you just like you, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
a friend who loves paintings and she goes to museums and she'll look at paintings and she can stare at the same painting for like 45 minutes. I'm not kidding. And for me, I'm ready to move on after a few minutes. But she kind of walked me through it once and I asked her like, "What are you looking at? Like help me understand." And she talked about everything. It's not just what the painting is or what it represents, but it's everything from like the brushstrokes, the expression on people's faces. What is that person in the painting thinking and feeling? And she just goes on and on. And that is her meditation because it's so calming for her. And it, in her own way, it puts her back in her body too, which I thought was just
I
so interesting. I would not have guessed that. But yeah, to your point, meditation really can be anything. It doesn't have to be sitting down on the floor with your eyes closed. It can be whatever feels good for you.
exactly anything that allows you to kind of like block out the world a little bit and just come inside, inward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
come home to yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. And Jess, this has been an incredible conversation. We're winding down here, so I've got one last question for you. If someone is listening right now and realizes they have been in survival mode for years, what's one gentle first step they can take that does not require fixing themselves?
Yeah, so I will come back to what I had mentioned before. It's that moment by moment choosing yourself. So
Mm,
again, it's learning how to, and I don't want to make this sound simple per se. Like it's it is not necessarily easy to do, but it's a simple thing. So, and it takes time. Um, but it's a process of paying attention to your body, really learning how to become aware of it. So, what I would suggest is like the first thing where I started is that I just needed to start noticing sensations in my body. So, if we notice something, a lot of times, at least for me, I would notice it and be like, oh, okay, and just dismiss it. And that was it. I never followed through on like, is that trying to tell me something? So I
mhm,
feel like that is probably the easiest place to start is like if you feel a sensation in your body, just follow that and see if it's actually trying to tell you something. And then
mhm.
in those moment to moments, whenever you have that chance to choose yourself, is that a moment that you want to choose yourself? It's and I phrase it that way because nobody's perfect. We're not always going to choose ourselves,
Yeah.
and it is unrealistic to think that you are going to choose yourself every single moment. And I think that would come back to that pressure that we were talking about, feeling like you have to choose yourself every single moment.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jess, thank you so much for your honesty and the grounded way that you speak about something so many people quietly carry. Conversations like this remind us that just because we survive something does not mean we're done tending to ourselves. And I'm really grateful that you came on and shared your story with us. And again, thank you so much for being here, Jess.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kristen. This was awesome.
If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to sit with it. You can find more episodes and resources at flyingupstreampodcast.com. And if this show speaks to you, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is ready to question the path they are on. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and always keep flying upstream.